Yes, good. So I'm going to record the video. So you have two homeworks due tonight. That will be P5 and P6. So you got two homework due today, P5 and P6. And then what you guys have to do is a test. You have a test tomorrow at noon. So and it will be due on Wednesday, the following day at noon. There will be around 15 questions in your test, and you will cover the entire chapter P. So so if you're done with the test, make sure you print out the test and do it, or write on papers. So does anyone have any homework questions on P5 and P6? Anyone here have any questions regarding with P5 or P6? You can either talk to me or chat with me, or anyone have questions with P5 or P6 before we start with chapter 1 today? Anyone? P5, P6? Magida? Okay. P6 number 14? Okay. P6 number 14. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to share the screen and we're going to do P6 number 14 here. Where is my, there you go. So P6 question number 14. So this is the question, is telling us that you are looking at this question. It says that your coordinates is given here and it's translate. And if you can tell, it says it's 3 units down and 6 units to the left. So if a question is given us a 3 units down and 6 to the left, they want you to figure out what is, if I paint here, let me just do my paint. All right, so in this case, so if this is for question number 14 on P6, they say that you had to go down 3 units and to the right 6 units. So that that means that when you go down 3 units, your y coordinates will be -3. And if you go right 6 units, your x coordinates will be at 6. So in this case, the first coordinates they give to us is -3, 6. So what you need to do here is to change this point. Your x you add 6 and your y you -3. So that will give us 3, 3. So this is the first coordinates that you have, is 3, 3. So you do the same thing for the rest of this. So the next one we have is -5, 3, and you do the same thing for this. You +6 here, and then you -3. So you will get 1, 0. So this is 1, 0. So you do the rest of it. It's pretty much very simple. You just need to add, based on this question, you have to add 6 to your x values and -3 to your y value. Okay. Anyone have any more questions? Anyone have any questions beside this P6 number 14? If you don't, we will start chapter 1.1 today. So 1.1 today is where we talk about graph of equations. So on your online homework, I also need to teach you how to graph these equations because it's something that you guys need to learn. It's not something that you just take a pen and just draw a pencil and draw a straight line on it. So the relationship between two quantities is expressed in the equations in 2 variables. So now we are talking about 2 variables here. So on chapter P, mostly we talk about 1 variable, which is x. Usually we use the x variable. So this chapter 1.1, we talk about 2 variables. So you begin to use x and y in this case. So we have, then your answer in this case has to be a order pair AB. It's a solution. Last time your answer is just like x equals to 3, but now you've got 2 answers, but you have to put it in a order pair or coordinates, somebody says, where x in this case is A and B in this case is Y in this case is your B. And then in this case, you have to do a graph. A graph is all the set of all the points that are solutions to this equation. So in your online homework, when you graph this, you only need 2 points, okay? In your online homework, you only need to graph 2 points. And I'll teach you how to graph this, okay? So in your online homework, you need to graph only 2 points, not a lot of points, okay? There are a lot of ways for us to draw a graph. The first method that we point out here is using the point plotting method, which I would suggest you not to use it. This is a very last resort. That means that if you forget everything, this is the plan Z. If you have plan A, plan B, this is your plan Z, last plan. What I mean by point plotting is you draw yourself a table, like what I have here, and then you use a table, and then you put your X values, any numbers you want, and then after that you plug it back into the equations to find your Y values. And then after that, once you got your X, Y values, you plot it, and then after that you connect. And when you guys connect the points, when you have a curve, make sure the curve is a smooth curve. Smooth curve is what we just talked about here. That means you have to be smooth like that. So you cannot have a graph that is zigzaggy, like an absolute value. So you cannot have like a V shape or an upside down V shape. So you cannot have this. It's mostly when you do this, is a smooth curve of the line. So this is the one way to do it. So this is what I usually tell students. This is the really last resort to do it. So this one is the last resort. So if you are like, I doesn't know how to plan the last plan, this is your last plan here. So if you doesn't know how to draw, if I give you an equation, you have no idea how to draw it out, then I will recommend you to do this. Same thing happens when you go to college algebra, when you get very weird equations and the question wants you to graph it and you doesn't know how to graph it, then you use this point plotting method, okay? Another way for us to draw a graph is using what we call as the x-intercepts. So we're using the x and y intercept. So we were doing the x-intercept is where it is going to be touched on the x-axis. And the coordinates of the x-intercept in this case is A0. And this is something you guys need to know. In order for you to find the x-intercept, your y has to be equals to 0. And same thing happens when you want to find the y-intercept, your x in this case will be 0. So this is something that you guys need to be aware of. When you guys do your x-intercept, you have to set y equals to 0 and solve for x. And in order for you to find the y-intercept, you have to set x equals to 0 and find the y-intercept. Sometimes a graph can have no intercept, one intercept, and several intercepts. So when you guys go to college algebra, we call it the x-intercepts is called the zeros. Okay, so when you go to college algebra, we call the x-intercept the zeros. Okay, so so something for you guys when you guys go on to the next class. So this is also a good way to graph it. So you can graph your x-intercepts and your y-intercepts, and then you draw the graph. So the next thing is talking about is symmetry. So this is symmetry. Sometimes a graph of the equations can have a symmetry. A symmetry means that it is where kind of like a reflections. Okay. So for example, when you look at the parabola here, this is what I call as it is symmetry to the y-axis. Okay. So when you have a parabola, this is a symmetry to the y-axis. The reason why is because if you look at the y-axis, it is kind of like mirror image of each other. And how do we know that it is symmetry with the y-axis? You look at your coordinates, negative xy and xy will be on the graph. For example, 2, 4 and negative 2, 4 will be on the graph. So this is how we know this is a symmetry to the y-axis. In order for us to have a symmetry with respect to the x-axis, it will be like your square root plus and minus, where you have xy and then x and negative y is on the graph. So you find out 2, 4 is on the graph and also 2, negative 4 is on the graph. So you, this is what we call a symmetry with the x-axis. And finally, we have a symmetry with the origin. Origin means that if xy is on the graph, negative xy, negative x and negative y is on the graph. For example, is this graph, we call it as a cubic. 2, 8 is on the line, and negative 2, 8 is also on the negative 2 and negative is on the line. So this is how we figure out this is symmetry with respect to x, y, and origin. Sometimes sometimes a graph has no symmetry, then you say this is neither. Okay, so neither means that you don't have symmetry, no symmetry. Oh, so no symmetry on both on x, y, and the origin. So I can tell you that for the x-axis, this kind of graph, this is a plus minus square root of x. This is a symmetry of the x-axis. For the symmetry of the y-axis, this is x squared. This is a graph of x squared. And for symmetry with the origin, this graph, this is x cubed. Okay, this is x cubed. This is the kind of graph that we will have. So if a question give you a graph and they ask you which symmetry is it, you just look at your coordinates, okay, and then you will tell very easily. Sometimes a question wants you to test algebraically. Algebraically means they don't give you a graph, they give you an equation, and they want you to figure out that are they symmetry or not with the x, y, and origin. So if it's an x-axis, you replace your y with a negative y, and then you find out that you have the same equations when you replace y with negative y, you get exactly the same. For the x-axis, you replace x with negative x, you also get an equivalent equations. For the origin, you replace x to become negative x and y become negative y, and you get the same equation. So a lot of students were asking me was like, what does that mean? Okay, what does that mean when you do this? So for example, in this case is I told you that so I give you this if you have y equals to plus minus square root of x, and you want to figure out what symmetry is it. We know this is symmetry with respect to the x-axis. So what do we do first is we replace your y with a negative y. So what I do here is I replace my y to become negative y. So I will get this. Okay, I replace the y with a negative y. So what happened in this case is in order for this, I solve for x. I square both sides. And you notice that you will get y squared equals to x. And when you do the same thing on the original equation, when you square both sides, you end up to be the same thing. You end up getting y squared equals to x. And what do you notice now is these two is exactly the same. So this is what we mean by it is symmetrical with respect to the x-axis. Okay, so this is how we figure out all this using algebraically without the graph. The next one that we have in this case is y equals to x squared. This is the one that we know is symmetry with respect to the y-axis, the parabola. So what do I do is I replace the x become negative x. So just do here. So what is going on here is I replace the x to become negative x and I square it. And I still get the same thing, x squared. So you find out that these two is exactly the same. So that's why it is symmetry to respect to the y-axis. Okay, so this is how, then the last thing we're going to talk about is symmetry with respect to the origin. So that is the y equals to x cubed, the power of 3. This one we know is origin. So how do we know this is we put down, so what happened is if you put a y, you can interchange your y to become negative y. So you will get, orange. What was that? Okay. Oh, sorry, there you go. Where is my mouse? There you go. So I got negative y equals to x cubed. And then, so what I did here is I just take the cube root of it. So in this case, you find out that this one is a negative y here, and this is going to be equals to x. Okay, this one doesn't work. Cube root doesn't work. X cubed. Let's do the other one. This is supposed to be, yeah. Oh yeah. You get the equal. Oh, sorry, wrong. My bad. My bad. This is wrong. Exactly wrong. Sorry. So this is how we figure out symmetry with the origin. Is you plot y to become negative y and x to become negative x at the same time. Sorry about that. So this is negative y equals to the negative x cubed. So this is what we're gonna do here is we change your y to become negative y, we change x to become negative x. So we got negative y equals to negative x cubed. And the two negative will cancel. So what you get is y equals to x cubed. And you find out these two is the same. So that's why this is symmetric to the origin. Okay, so this is how we figure out if an equation is symmetric to the x-axis, y-axis, and origin. You just need to substitute your your y become negative y, your x will become negative x, and both your negative x and y become negative y and negative x. And if one of them doesn't show like this, then it is going to be neither in this case. I will give you some examples so you can see what's going on with that. And lastly, we talk about is circle. So circle, the equation of a circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals to r squared, where hk in this case is your center and your r in this case is radius. I just want you guys to watch carefully with this equation is because the sign inside here is negative and the center here is hk and your r is square here, but your radius is r. What do I mean by that is, example is what happens if I give you something like this, x plus 4 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals to 49, for example. So can someone tell me by looking at this, what is your center? And don't forget, center has to be in coordinates. And what is your radius here? So go ahead and you can talk to me or you can message me or you can, so given you the equation, x plus 4 squared minus y plus y minus 2 squared equals to 49. Can you tell me what is the center? It's a circle. What's the center of this circle and the radius of it? Can someone, yep, go ahead and tell me what is the center and the radius. The center is hk, the radius is r. No, y minus 2 is not the center. The center, it has to be in the coordinates. It's the two number h and k. Okay, so yes, Devin is correct. Saidu, that's not right. The center is not 4 and 2. Watch your sign. This is a positive 4. This is a negative 2. And I also need radius. Devin, you got it right. Yes. So watch carefully here is because the original questions. Nope, Sanford, that is wrong. Ahmed, Ahlam Jalil, that is also wrong. Radius, both wrong. Yep. Page is wrong. Good. See, you guys all got this wrong. Yes, this is all wrong. And this is correct. This is good. You learn from your mistake here. So do not give me 4, negative 2. 4, negative 2 is wrong. If you give me 4, negative 2 with a radius of 49, that is all wrong. So please listen to me here now. I'll give you another questions, and then you will, because this is asked in your homework here. So what happened is because your h is a negative, but this time your h here is a positive. So your center in this case is a -4, not 4. And your k is a negative k, is a negative here. So your k in this case is just 2. And for your radius, because your radius, the formula here is square, so you need to take the square root of 49, and the square of 49 in this case is 7. So this is the correct answer for the center, -4, 2, and the radius 7. So what I usually tell my students is you take the x and y and you flip-flop the sign. You flip-flop the sign, and then for the r, you take the square root to find the radius. Okay, so this is the, so make sure you guys know how to do this. Is you have to flip-flop this sign. So this 4, +4 become -4. The -2 become +2, and then the radius has to be square root, so that is 7. Okay, let me give you another one so you guys know what to do with it. So x minus 2, x plus 5 squared plus y plus 2, y plus 1 squared equals to 8. A little bit more tricky here. So forget about the square here. So go ahead and tell me what is the center of this and the radius of that, of this circle. Go ahead. Tell me what is the center of this. Yep, center is negative. Yep, Alam, that's correct. I'm still waiting for radius. Alam, Jalil, you have to give me the radius also. The question you should ask you for both of this. So go ahead. Yep, very good. Radius is not 8. Radius is not 8. Yep. So, you guys got Devin. The answer is not decimal. Some of you will take radius is not 2. So some radius is the one that is tricky here. A lot of students take, oh, David say take a square root. So I take out my calculator and take a square of 8, and that came out to be 2.8. That will be wrong. So no, not 3. I will show you what happens, Devin. Not square of 8. So a lot of you get the center right, which is -5, -1. Very good. Once you got my example here, you got it. So the radius in this case is a square root of 8, as what Sally say, but unfortunately square of 8 you can simplify. So a lot of students say, no, don't give me 2.8, don't give me 3, don't give me anything. So it's a square root of 8, not 8, it has to be square root of 8. So the radius in this case is square root of 8. However, you have to reduce this. So this is what you guys did in chapter P here. So 8 in this case is 4 times 2. And 4 is a perfect square of 2. So this is actually is 2 root 2. So this is how you find your radius in this case. This is the answer. You have to give it to me. Yep, 2 square of 2, not square root of 8, or if you use your calculator, it's 2.6, right? I think Darwin says 2.6, 2.8. It's not 2.8, so don't give me 2.8. This is the one that they want you to write. Same thing in your online homework, same thing in my test, everything. When you have a square of 8, or how about square root of 18? I want you guys to try to do what is square root of 18 give you. Square of 18 is what? Like what we just did just now. You guys have to know all these things, because starting from this time onwards, when you get this kind of square roots, you have to break it down like what I just did here. Very good, Adam Lee, that is correct. You do not do your calculator, oh, root 18 is 4 point something. No, you have to do like what I just did here. Starting from this time onwards means that if you go to college algebra, trigonometry, calculus, this is what you have to do. You cannot do the calculator way that you got that. Yep, that's correct, Magida. Very good. Okay, so 18 is not 3, 3. Nope, Sanford is not. Yep, that is correct. Afnam, Devin, you got it right. Should be not 3 times 2 there. It's just 2 and 3. So what times what is 18? Anyone know what times what is 18? Yep, Sally, you're wrong. It's not. Tamidu is correct. 9 times 2, yes, 9 times 2 is 18. And 9, it's a perfect square. So what is a perfect square of 9? That will be something, right? 3, yep. And then what is still remain inside is your 2. So your answer in this case is 3 square root of 2. So you need to know how to do this kind of work from this time onwards. So including your test P. When you do your test P tomorrow, the first test, you have to do the same thing if I ask you something like that. So that means that the radius in this case is 2 square root of 2. Okay, so make sure you guys know how to do this kind of questions. It's very important. Is anyone okay here so far with the work? Okay, now we look at some examples here. So determine whether these coordinates points lie on this graph. So how do we figure out if they are on the graph? Is you substitute your x and y into your equation. So your x in this case is 3 and your y is -5. And you figure out are they equal or not. So when you plug in 3 and -5 here, you find out this is -4. And -4 is not equal to -5. That means this is not, doesn't lie on the point, on the graph. For this case, you put x is -2 and y is 26 into this equation. 26 equals to 14 minus 2 times -2. And you find out that this will equal to 26. Then this is, yes, this is a solution. This point will lie on the graph. So this is how you check if your point lie or not. You just plug x and y into the equation here. It's very straightforward type. Okay. Next, you have to sketch this graph. So in order to sketch this graph, we use the graphing, the table form. So you can plug any x values you want. I put -1, 0, 4, 2. You can put whatever numbers you want, and then you plug it in here. -3 times -1 is 3 plus 2 is 5. And then you put 0 here, that is 2. And then you put 4 here, that will give us -10. And then you plug 2 in here, that will give us -4. And then what you do is you got all this, then you change all this into coordinates point, -1, 5, 0, 2, 4, -10, and 2, -4. And then you plug it, and then you draw me the straight line. So this is how you sketch the graph using what we call as the table form. Okay, same thing happens on this equation. Again, usually I use 4 coordinates points. So I put any x values. Some of you will ask me, how do you know you're gonna use this -1, 0, 4, 2, and 0, 2? You can use any x values that you want. But I will suggest you to use a small values. Don't use like 200, 2,000, 2 million. I mean, you can, but if you have 2,000 big numbers, when you plug in here, it's going to be big. So it's going to be very difficult. So we always, and 0 is always a must. Okay. A 0 is always a must because it's very easy, and that is actually your y-intercept. So the reason why I say that 0 is a must is because that gives you the y-intercept. And it's very easy to plug 0 into your x because anything to do with 0, you end up with a 0. So, so -3, when you square this, become 9. 9 plus 3 is become 12. I put a -1 over here. So -1 square will give you 1. And 1 plus 3 will give us 4. And then when you put 0 here, 0 square is 0. 0 plus 3 in this case is 3. So that's why 0 is very easy. And then 2, you square it, become 4. 4 plus 3 becomes 7. And then after that, you take all this point and you plot it in. -312, which is way up here. This is -312. -1, 4 is here. 0, 3 is here. And 2, 7 is here. And this is then you draw me the curve in this case. In your online homework, you just need 2 points. You need 2 points. Okay, you just need 2 points. And this is what we call as a parabola. Okay, so every time when you see an x square, we call this as a parabola because it looks like a U shape. Okay, this is just what we call as a linear. So I just want to point out to you that when you have a power 1, your x is power 1, you have a linear graph. A linear graph means it's a straight line like this. It's either going down or going up or going vertical or horizontal. So it's going to be when you have x in here. So when you have an x square, you will get yourself a parabola. This parabola can be open upward. This is called parabola open upward. And you have a parabola open downwards. Okay. And then what happens when you have an x cube? If you have an x cube, then your graph will look like this. It looks like, sorry, this one goes something like that. So it will look something like this. This is an x cube graph in this case. Okay. So so make sure that you guys need to know because this is a cubic graph. So the shape of it is something like that. Okay. So when you go to college algebra, you will learn more about all this graph here. And then question 4 is asking you to find the x and y intercept. You do not, if a graph gives you already here, you can find your x-intercept and y-intercept by looking at the graph. So here, this is the x-intercept. So in this case, is 0, 0, and negative 5, 0. This is a negative 5 here. So this is your x-intercept, negative 5, 0, and 0, 0. And your y-intercept is right here, intercept under exactly 0, 0. And don't forget, when they ask you for x and y-intercept, your answer has to be in a coordinate form here. Okay. So what happens if the question did not provide you the graph? Okay, so what happens if a question did not provide you the graph and they want you to find the x and y intercept? So what you do here is, let's say this is the equation y equals to negative x squared minus 5x. So we know the answer. This is your answer because the graph is here. So, so what you do is, in order for us to find the x-intercept, you have to put y equals to 0. So you put 0 equals to x squared, negative x squared minus 5x. And then you have to factor, because you have an x squared here, you have to factor. So in this case, you can factor the negative x out because both of them have negative. So what we have in this case is x plus 5, because when you factor the negative, and how do you know this is correct? Is you distribute negative x times x is negative x squared, negative x times positive 5 is negative 5x, and you set this all equals to 0, and then after that you set each of these equals to 0. So negative x equals to 0, and then x plus 5 equals to 0, and you solve for x in this case. So no, for this case, because the negative, it doesn't matter because 0 doesn't have plus or minus sign. So you end up with a 0. And for this case, you move the 5 over, so you get negative 5. So what you have in for this kind of question is it has to be in coordinates. So your x-intercept in this case is 0, 0 because you have the 0, and also negative 5, 0. So this is how we do find your x and y intercept. What we call algebraically, means there's no graph given to you. Next, you have to find the y-intercept. So in order for you to find the y-intercept, you have to make your x become 0. So this is very easy because you put all this becomes 0. So you will get 0, negative 0 squared minus 5 times 0. So no matter what you do with the zeros here, they all will end up with zeros because this square becomes 0, 5 times 0 is 0. So that means that your y-intercept in this case is 0, 0. So, and then what you do next is, if I want you to graph this, if you have your xy intercept, so you have 0, 0 over here, and you got negative 5, 0 over here. Now, usually you need an extra point here. So how do we figure out using an extra point is you just plug x to become any number you want. So let's say I'm going to plug x to become negative 1. So I'll try to figure out what y is. So y in this case is negative times negative 1 squared minus 5 times negative 1. So this will give me positive 1 when you square the negative, but you have to multiply with a negative. So this end up with a negative 1. And negative 5 times negative 1 will give me a positive 5. And that will give me 4. So the coordinates in this case is x is negative 1. And your y value is 4. So you kind of figure out that your graph will look something like this, which is what we have over here. Okay, so mostly in college algebra is where you will start learning how to graph the parabola, the real exact graph. So you do not have to worry much about it, but this is usually how we find your x and y intercept. Does anyone have any questions here so far? Before we move on to, we are almost done with this one. Next, you want to figure out if this equation is symmetry with the x-axis, y-axis, and origin. So how do we figure out is we plug for x-axis, we plug y become negative y. So we plug y become negative y over here, and then when you square it, you will get back the original question. So this one, you get the original question because when you square your y, you get y squared equals to 6 minus x, which is exactly the same. So this is exactly on the x-axis. And I want to point out to you guys, class, is that if you have x-axis, you do not need to do y and origin because we know it's no good. So that means that when a graph is symmetric to the x-axis, you cannot have a y-axis and origin at the same time. So it's either x or y, or origin, or neither. You only pick one of these. It's not multiple choices here. Okay, it's not like this and that and that and that. So in order for us to test y-axis, I plug x become negative x just for the heck of it. So so you will get 6 plus x, which is not the same as the origin. And then to test original equation, and then to test for its origin, you plug y become negative y and x become negative x. And you get y squared equals 6 plus x, which is also not the same as the original equation. So these two are out. So that's why this question is x-axis. So again, this is redundant. So some of you ask me, is like, David, do you need to show the work for those two? No, this two is redundant. Once you figure out that x-axis, you're done. But if x-axis is no good, you have to go on to the y-axis. And then you have to go on to the origin. And if all three is no good, then your answer is neither. Okay, just want to point out to you guys, this is what we're going to talk, what we do it. And finally, you have to sketch x squared minus 4. So in order for us to sketch this, you have to plug it using table form. So how do we sketch this is you just put x become any numbers I want. So I put 0 here, and I end up with negative 4. I put 1 here. 1 squared is 1, minus 4 is negative 3. I put 2 here, you will get 0, and I put negative 1, got negative 3, and then you plot the points, and then draw me is a parabola because it's an x squared. And again, you can use any points you want. And a lot of students try to say, I don't want to use negative points. Do include some negative points here, okay? So some of you was like, I want to do 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, you can do it. Then you only get the positive side of the graph. You doesn't know what happens to the negative side of the graph. So I want you to include some negative points so you know it's go that way. For this question, it's written down as absolute value of x minus 2. Just want to point out to you because it's all the ink over here. So all the written, so it's y equals to absolute x minus 2. So in this case, I was doing 0, 1, 2, negative 1, and 3. So I put 0 inside here, and when you put 0 inside here, you will get negative 2. But absolute value of negative 2 will give us exactly 2. So that's why we end up with 2 in this 0. You put 1 over here is 1 minus negative 2. You get a negative 1. But an absolute value of a negative 1 is 1. So that's why it came up 1. You plug 2 here, 2 minus 2 is 0, absolute value of 0 is 0. You put -1 inside, so when you put -1 inside, it's -1 minus 2 is an absolute value of -3. So this is actually is 3. So usually I did 4 points, and then when you plug all this, you end up with this 4 coordinates point. So I just know what happens. It can go downwards or you can go like a V shape. So what happened is I put another point here for 3. So I put 3 minus 2 here, which is absolute value of 1. In this case is 1. So we know this one goes up. So that means that this is your graph in this case. So this is how we do this kind of question here. Lastly is question 8. This is talking about circle, because this question already gives us circle as the equation. And they say it has this point and the center is h -3, -5. So the good news is that we know the hk, so that means this is the equation of a circle. So we know h is -3, so I plot -3 become +3. I plot -5 become +5, but we doesn't know the radius. So how do you find the radius is you use the distance formula that you learned in P6. Because if you remember, this is a circle, this is a center, and then the 1 point lies on it, and that means that that is your radius. So if you can find the distance between the center and the radius, that is center and the point, that is your radius in this case. So what I did here is use a distance formula. X2 minus x1 squared, y2 minus y1 squared, and that came out to be 5. And then what do I do with it is I square it, and then you get 25 in this case. So so this kind of questions is doing the backwards way, where they will want you to give them the equation. Last time I give you the equation, you give me the center and the radius, but this time you have to give me the equation, and center and radius is the main goal in this case. Okay? So that's the end of 1.1. It's not that difficult actually, but the main part of 1.1 in this case is how you graph this. Okay? This is something that a lot of students have questions, especially when they draw a graph here. So please pay attention, because a lot of you still doesn't know how to draw the graph. So let's do question number 7. I want you guys to go ahead and do the first one. I want you guys to plug -2 inside your x and figure out what is the solve for y, gonna make y. So y plus 1 equals to 4/5x. So for this question is -2 here. So I want you guys to go ahead. Yep, go ahead, solve for y. Tell me what is your y in this case. This is for question 7. For the first coordinates is -2. So you put -2 in your x, and you have to solve. And then after that, you -1 because you have to subtract 1 after that. Anyone know what is this? And it has to be in fraction, not decimal. So Aflam, I won't take your decimals answer. It has to be in fraction. Okay. Devin, you are correct. Saidu, you are wrong. Don't forget, this is a +1 here, but once you move in there, it's a -1. So it's not -3/5. Yep, Magida is correct. Sally is wrong. No, Atlam, you still need to do more work because this is y plus 1 here. See that? You have to move the 1 over. So Atlam, you are not correct yet. So originally, this question is asking why this is y plus 1 here. You have to solve for y. Yep. Sally is wrong. Saidu is wrong. Yep, Patterson is correct. The next thing you need to do is just keep on doing the same thing. You plug 0. This is easy, right? The second one is you plug x to become 0. This is super easy when you plug 0 in here. Yep. Magida is correct. Yep. No, Mario Jesse is wrong. Marissa, you got it correct. Magida, you got the second one. Mario is, so in this case, this is when you guys do this question, it is -8/5, but what I mean here is because you got y plus 1 here, this is -8/5, but you still have the plus 1. So you have to solve for y. So you have to move the 1 over, become -1. So that will give me, and this -1 can change to become anything you want. So I change to 5/5 so that the denominator is the same. So this is -13/5. Okay, so your answer in this case is -13/5. They might need to put in the fraction. Oh, where was the fraction? Yeah, 13/5. Let's see if they like it or not. Oh, there you go. Now the thing pop up. Where was that thing? And these coordinates will become -2, -13/5. I don't know why that thing doesn't came out that way. That is the weirdest one. And I want you guys to plug 0 inside here. This is easy. Go ahead and do the second one. Plug 0 inside here. Where is that thing? Okay. I don't know why it's not popping up. This is easy. This is -1, right? So this is gonna be 0, -1. Then you plug 1 inside here. Yep, put 1 inside here. Magida was correct. So the next one is put 1, and then after that, we'll give you the fraction. Yep, that is good. You guys are good. Yep. -1/5 is the correct answer here. So 1, -1/5. I don't know why that one doesn't come up. And next we put 5/4. Now this one might be a little bit, oh, you're good, Natalie. Natalie, you're correct. So this one might be a little bit tricky, is because when you put 5/4 in here, do you know what you will get 4/5 times 5/4. Do you know what happens when you multiply this up? This is exactly 1. And don't forget, yep, you're good. Then you have to subtract 1 here. So that will give, because you have a plus 1, you move it over, you subtract 1. So you get 0. So in this case, this is 0. Okay, so this is 5/4, 0. And the next one you can do yourself, but this is the time I'm gonna, and then you do the last one. This is how you're gonna graph this, so pay attention. I think you guys are all good with this plugging into here. I think you guys know what to do. But this is the one that is tough. So you have to use all this point and graph it. So how do you graph this is, first you pick a line, pick this, click on this, and when you click on this, they got 3 choices. Because this is a straight line, you have to use this one, the one that is 2 arrows. This one is called a ray, which is 1 arrow, and this one is called a line segment, that's no arrows. So for this question, you have to use 2 arrows. We're gonna do the 0, you only need to take 2 points. So I'm gonna put 0, -1. Oh, sorry, wrong point. So click on this and 0, -1. Okay, so this is 0, -1. And the other one, let's say I'm gonna use -2, -13/5. Okay, which is gonna be -2. Does anyone know what is -13/5 is? Something 2 point something, right? So unfortunately, when you click on here, yeah, 2 point, yeah, -2.6. If you click on here, they don't give you 2 point. Oh, sorry, this is the wrong graph. So what you need to do is you have to change this from -2 to -2.6. That's what Devin told. Okay, don't do dash, and you're done. So this is how you do it. So and then you submit answer. Let me redo this for you again. So first, pay attention. First, you click here, double click, to form a straight line. And then you plug the easy point, which is here 0, 1. So 0, -1. And let's say now you want to do 5/40. So you just 5/40 is somewhere around here. You click on it. But this one is not 5/4. This one is 1, 0. So what you need to do is click on this little and do line 2 because I have 2 lines here. Then you click this one to become 5/4. You guys see what I'm doing? And then after that, you can close it. So now the point move a little bit to 1.25, and then after that you submit your answer. So this is how you graph in your graph here. So make sure you guys know how to graph this. I didn't do this last piece. You guys doing okay? How you graph it? So we can put it. Yes, you can put your answer in decimal, and you can put your answer in fraction. Doesn't matter with you. But if you got fraction, just put in fraction. If it's that, you can use the calculator, change it to decimal too. Yeah, it doesn't matter which way to do it. Okay. This one, you do the same thing. You plot x is -2 here and find out what's y. And then the good news is this one is all multiple choice, so you do not need to graph this. This one, they want you to identify the x-intercept. So how do you find your x-intercept? By looking at this graph, is x-intercept is where it intercepts on the x. So can someone tell me what is your x-intercept in this case? And don't forget, x-intercept has to be in coordinates form. Okay, good, Devin. So make sure you put in coordinates forms. Don't put -2, 2. But what I want to point is -2, 0. Yep, and 2, 0. And the first question over here, they ask you for the smaller one. So the smaller one in this case is him. So it will be a -2, 0. So make sure you put a smaller one. And then 2, 0 is the larger one. Okay, so make sure you guys know which is small, which is large. And then what is your y-intercept? Y-intercept is where you intercept at the y-axis. The y-intercept in this case will be what? It's at 12, not 12, 0. Don't forget, this is not 12, 0. It's 0, 12. Very good. Okay, Patterson, be careful. Okay, this is 0, 12 because your y in this case is 12. Okay, very good. You guys got it. This is the same thing. They give you multiple of this. You just figure out this. This time you got 3 x-intercept. This one is the smallest one. This one is the middle one, and then this one is the largest one. And then your y-intercept is still 0, 0 because it crosses over here. Okay. So next, this is the next one. This is getting tough. They give you this equation. You have to figure out, are they symmetry with respect to the x-axis, y-axis, origin, or neither. So how do we do this is you put your equation down here. So for us to figure out if they are x-axis, so what you do for x-axis in this case is you put your y to become -y. So your equation become x equals to x minus -y squared. Where's my equal sign? Equals to 15. Sorry, that's the equals here. So I replace my y to become -y. And we know when you square this, you still end up to be y squared. So you find out that when you do this, this is exactly the same. So if they are exactly the same, then this is x-axis. You do not need to do anything else after that. Okay. We're gonna try to do the next one here. Okay, that's how we do 11. How about question 12? So how do we figure out for question 12? Is you do the same thing, y equals to x4 minus x squared plus 7. And in order for you to do the x-axis, I put y become -y. So become -y equals to x4 minus the same thing. But unfortunately, this one does not work because this is not exactly the same. Because last time we have a square, we can square it and this all came out nice. But this one does not look good. So next, I will use the y axis. So to figure out if there are y-axis, you replace all your x to become negative x. So you will get y equals to negative x to the power of 4 minus negative x to the power of 2 plus 7. So anything to the power of 4, if you have a negative, this will turn out to be positive. Same thing with power 2, anything negative will turn out to be positive, but then you have a negative in front. So this is actually x squared positive, but then when you multiply with negative, you get negative plus 7. And now you compare this with your original question, they are exactly the same. So if they are exactly the same, then this is y-axis in this case. So this is how we figure out x-axis, y-axis, and so on. It's very straightforward type. So again, for x-axis, you put y become negative 5. For y-axis, x become negative x. For origin, you put both x become negative x and y become negative y, both of them. And they have to be back exactly the original question, then it is symmetry with origin. Okay, that's how we figure it out. Next, assume this graph is symmetry, graph the situation. So if it's symmetry to the x-axis, so kind of like reflections on the x-axis. So for this kind of questions, when they ask you which one is the correct graph, if they ask you for x-axis, it's kind of a reflection to it. Okay, so if this graph looks something like this, like what we have over here, something like that, what happens when you reflect to the x-axis? You will get this way. So your graph will look like this one. This is how we do reflection on the x-axis. Okay. How do you do a reflection on the y-axis? If it's a symmetry on the y-axis, it's reflection. So with this is a line. So can someone tell me which one is the reflections on the y-axis here? Is that A, B, C, or D? Anyone? Anyone know which one is it? Yep, good. Yep. A is the correct one because if you reflect this on the y-axis, you go this way. The next one is to find any intercepts and test for symmetry in this case. Yep, go ahead and take attendance. Yes, I'm so sorry. Yes, go ahead and I will take attendance. So please type in present. Those students, go ahead, present. Yep, Maria is fine. I got you. Go ahead and type present. Those attendance time. Okay. And we will do the last question here. Let's do question number 15 here. Yep, go ahead and type present, those who are attendance. So for question number 15, how do we do question number 15 in this case is you have to find the x-intercept. So in order for us to find the x-intercept, you put y equals to 0. So in this case, you got 0 equals to square root of 9 minus x. And in order for us to solve for x, you have to square both sides because how we get a square root is we square both sides. So in this case, you get 0 squared, which is still 0. The square and square root will cancel. You get 9 minus x. And then I move the x over to this side because it's a negative x, it becomes positive x. So your x in this step, in this case, is not 9, but make sure you put in coordinates 9, 0. Okay, so if you put 9, they will mark you wrong in this case. Okay, next you have to find the y-intercept. So how do you find your y-intercept in this case is you put your x to become 0. So you will get y equals to square root of 9 minus 0 because your x is 0. And 9 minus 0 is 9 and square root of 9 is 3. So in this case, your coordinates in this case will be 0, 3. Okay. So this is how we find your x and y intercept. And then after that, you have to figure out are they symmetry with x, y, or z, x, y origin or no symmetry. So what you do here is for x, you put y become negative y. So we have a negative y equals to square root of 9 minus x. Unfortunately, these two are not the same because it's not the same as the original equation. So this is no good. So it's not symmetry with the x-axis. Now we do the y-axis. So I put x to become negative x. So I got y equals to square root of 9 plus x because I got both, I put negative x in here, and negative is plus. And guess what? This is also not the same as that one. And finally, I do it for the origin. So I put x become negative x and y become negative y into this equation. I will get negative y equals to square root of 9 plus x. And this is also not the same as the original equation. So this is no symmetry in this case. Okay. And finally, you have to graph this. So how do we graph this is looking at your intercept. So my x-intercept is 9, 0. So this is 9, 0. But my y-intercept is 0, 3. So 0, 3 is not here. So 0, 3 is this one. So that's why your answer in this case will be this part, 9, 0 and 0, 3. You guys all right here so far with your homework here? You guys have any questions so far? So mostly everything is very straightforward type. By the way, this is the last one before I let you guys go because you have to graph the circle. So when you look at this last question, because there's no hk here, so that's last time I give you h and x, like x plus h squared. So there's no hk. So this means that your center is at 0, 0 at origin. Radius, remember last time it's not 81. You had to take the square root of 81. That was 9. That is going to be 9. So how do we do this? This is a circle going with center at 0, 0, which is right here. And the radius is 9. So what you do is you have to click the circle button. And the first thing you need to click on is the 0, 0, which is the center. And then you click on 9, 0, and that will give you this. And why I picked 9, 0 is because the radius is 9. And then when you click on it, then all the radius is going to be 9 and negative 5, so on. So it's very easy to draw a circle. First, click on the center first, in this case 0, 0, and then count the radius, which is 9, and then click on it, and then you automatically draw your circle here. So it's pretty much straight, very easy, but make sure you use the circle symbol here. Last time we do a straight arrow symbol here. So does anyone have any questions so far? That's the end for today's class. So I'm going to stop sharing here. You do have a test tomorrow, so make sure you guys take the test tomorrow. It's going to be at noon tomorrow. It's going to be posted in D2L, and it's also going to be sending to you to your school email address. So make sure you check your email tomorrow or go to D2L to check it. And then what you do is either you print out the test and do the test, or you take papers and write down your answers here, and then scan using your CAM scanner or your scanner at home, any scanning device that you have, and then send it to me to my email. Send it to my email address. Do not drop it in D2L in the Dropbox, okay? Send it to me. You got 24 hours to do so, and Wednesday by noon will be the last time you send it to me. Around 15, 16 questions in your first test here is covering chapter P, and then you got P5 and P6 due tonight. Does anyone have any questions so far with today's class? If you do have questions, please stay and talk to me. If you don't have questions, make sure you guys do the present, right? If you don't have questions, you may leave the classroom. I'll see you guys on Thursday. Saidu, what's the question you have?
I have a question with P5, question number 27.
27.
Yeah, because I tried to put my answer in and it's not giving me the
P5, right?
Yeah.
Number 27. If you have questions, please stay. If you don't have questions, you may go. And this is, I'm going to stop recording here.